we can transition into our today's topic, which is the Senior Living Community Panel, Real Answers, Real Options. This is our 11th series for the Senior Living Education Series. So we've gone over a bunch of different things from downsizing, emergency preparedness, scam 101. But today we get to hear from two professionals who work directly within senior living just every single day. So we can go ahead and get started. And please give a warm welcome to Lisa Zylstra and Mallory Wentland. I'll have Mallory, you can go ahead and just start. We'll just do a little intro if you want to just tell us a little bit more about yourself, who you are, and your role at your senior living community.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Mallory. Nice to meet you all. I have been in senior living for 10 years now. I am working at Eden Crest at the Tuscany in Altoona currently, which is assisted living, independent living, and assisted living memory care. One thing that I really enjoy about senior living is the fact that I get to go out and help people each and every day and get those relationships with the people I'm interacting with, and then seeing you at the Sison conference and seeing you at seminars that we run into, just being a part of your journey as you're still in your home and then as you make that choice into senior living is one thing I really enjoy.
Good morning. See lots of familiar faces here. I am Lisa Zylstra, and I am the Director of Sales and Marketing at Park Center. I've been with Park Center for almost 2.5 years. I've lived in Newton for 26 years, grew up in Oskaloosa, so small central Iowa girl here. And before coming to Park Center, I worked at the hospital in Newton, and so had a little bit of healthcare, and Park Center certainly is a little bit of healthcare, but it's a lot different too. So similar to what Mallory shared, I just really enjoy working with the residents. Some I've already had relationships with through just being a part of the Newton community, and others I've gotten to know, and it's just been a lot of fun, and I really enjoy working with individuals as they're deciding what is the next step for them.
Perfect. I'll continue with you, Lisa. If you can you give us just a little background on Park Center, what kind of community it is, what services it offers, levels of care, things like that?
Sure. So Park Center is a part of the WesleyLife organization. WesleyLife owns several, we call them communities for healthy living in the state of Iowa. Our headquarters is based out of Johnston. So we are an Iowa-based organization with Iowa communities. Park Center was built originally in 1992, and we are a full continuum of care. And that means that we have independent living, assisted living, long-term care. In our long-term care, we have a dedicated memory care household is what we call it. And then we also have Willowbrook Adult Day, and this is all on the campus at Park Center. So the nice thing is that no matter what level of care someone needs, it is all in one location. It's all connected. You can get everywhere. Doesn't matter if it's -10 outside, you can get to wherever you want to go inside Park Center. And Park Center has a little bit of a fun history, I think, in the fact that in like the early 90s, probably even a little bit before that, there was no senior living community in Newton. And some residents of Newton went to WesleyLife and advocated for them to build one. And they said, well, that's a great idea, but you're going to have to raise $1 million to make that happen. And they did it. And so it just has a really community-based history, which I think is really neat because that's what we want to do is be a community and serve those in Newton and the surrounding areas.
Perfect. Yep. I'll have you do kind of the same about Eden Crest.
Okay. So like we shared a few moments ago, Eden Crest does offer independent living, assisted living, and assisted living memory care. We are also Iowa-based and owned. Hubble Realty actually does own Eden Crest. There are 10 Eden Crest across the Des Moines metro area, spanning all the way from Adel to Altoona and Plaza Hill. The a unique thing about our building is that wherever you're at in the metro area, there's typically one within 5 miles, which is great.
Perfect. Yes. So I guess a little side note. So I've toured just in going through the Senior Real Estate Institute and getting certified as a senior housing professional. We are required to tour basically. I probably have been inside 20 to 25 senior living communities within Central Iowa. So each one of them, in my opinion, each one of them has their own like feel, I guess. Right when you walk into it, you just there's a sense of a sense of how things feel. So I honestly am not sure if I've walked Eden Crest in Altoona or not. So I cannot speak on that one. But yeah, obviously Park Center is great to walk into and all those things. But kind of transitioning into that and looking at the life inside of what community actually looks like. I'll go to Lisa first here. What does like the day-to-day actually look like for a resident inside Park Center? And if you want to kind of walk us through like just like a typical day, what that could look like.
Well, it can look different for every resident because Park Center is your home and you continue to live your life, especially in independent living, the way that you want to live it. So there are some residents that for them, that means they get very involved. And for other residents, it means maybe they just do their own thing. A lot of our residents are still very involved in community organizations. So they will be out. Some of them volunteer at the hospital gift shop. So they're still volunteering. They're still involved with those other organizations. But we have a lot of activities that we host at Park Center. So on a typical day, on a Monday, you may see people sitting in the bistro, having coffee, conversing with each other. 9 o'clock and 10 o'clock are fitness classes in our wellness center. So you'll see people going to those classes. There's lunch in the dining room at 11:30. Afternoons, there's various activities. Then in the evening, there's another meal. Sometimes there's games after the meal with resident organized games. So it really just depends on the day and what your preference is. We have book club, again, the wellness classes. You can also use the wellness center anytime you want to, so it doesn't have to be at a fitness class. There are errands around town every Tuesday afternoon with our bus driver. Somebody that came on the tour a few months ago got to ride her bus. And so there's just a lot of different things that they do. They'll do outings. Last week, they went to Haverhill. If anybody's ever been there for pizza, great little spot. They took the bus there. They'll go watch the horse races at Parade Meadows. But again, the community is about what your interests are and what your passions are. And we try to offer what the residents like. Every so often, they will do a request for like, what types of activities do you want to do? And people can submit what they'd like. And so maybe you really love going to the Des Moines Metro Opera and there's a big group of people that would like to do that. They can coordinate that for an outing.
Perfect. And then for Mallory, for Eden Crest, thinking of it from the perspective of like when someone first initially moves there, how do new residents adjust and or like what kind of support does Eden Crest provide for them?
I will say a lot of our support comes from our resident ambassadors. They get so excited when I put a new name in front of an apartment. They want to know who's moving in, when they're moving in, where they're from, how many kids they have. And they just welcome them with open arms. And then on the staff side of things, like our executive director will go meet with you on day one. You're going to have lunch with the chef. You're going to meet with activities so they get to know your likes, dislikes, and ideas that you have for the community.
Perfect. Yeah. I think, a lot of people here today might be trying to just like imagine what the actual transition might look like for themselves. So good to just kind of touch on that. Kind of to transition over into different trends and perspectives in senior living. What are, I guess, Mallory, how has senior living changed in recent years from your perspectives and or are families asking different questions now than they would have like 5 to 10 years ago?
I would say what I'm seeing more and more of is that people are waiting longer and longer to move into these communities. And when you do wait longer and longer, you may be thinking that you're looking for assisted living, but then a lot of the times you don't qualify anymore. So then you're needing to move into long-term care. That's one trend that I have been seeing. With families, I would say the most beneficial thing anyone can do is plan, 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 and be proactive. Tour the communities when you're able to tour the communities so you get a choice in the matter of where you are going when it is time when you do need assistance.
Perfect. And then, yeah, I'll follow up with Lisa for same question and or if you're seeing anything in older adults' lifestyle wellness or if there's anything that families are prioritizing differently.
Mhm. Well, I think for the families, the big thing is they want their parents or their loved ones to be in a safe place. And they want to know that if something happens to them, that, like, say, for example, if there's a fall, they want to know that there's support there that's going to help them, especially if they live out of town. But I see a lot of it that, I mean, residents want choices just like we do every day. I mean, if you think about it, our dining room is set up like a restaurant, but you still want to have a choice of what you have to eat. You know, you may not feel exactly like that. So we have choices in the menu options that people can choose from. So I think it's that people really still want to be in control, which is understandable. And so again, it's just about allowing the residents to be able to find what is important to them. I do see that a little bit too, that it's interesting of my move-ins right now. I kind of have both ends of the spectrum. I do have some individuals that have maybe waited a little bit too long. And so now it's kind of, okay, now we've got to make a move and I need to do this in the next month. But then I've also got some other couples that are making the decision while they are still very active to be able to make that decision and come in. But I do see that a lot too, like Mallory said, and that's the unfortunate thing because if you want to stay independent, but you've maybe waited a little bit too long, then you're not going to be able to maybe live in that level of living that you were hoping for.
Very good. Kind of just thinking about the family side of things. I guess, Lisa, what are the most common concerns and or fears you hear from when you have conversations with families when they're first starting to explore senior living and just kind of looking for those that are kind of doing the more pre-planning preparation, not necessarily in crisis mode, but just like those conversations.
Yeah, I think it's the transition. People have lived in their homes a lot of years, 60 to 70 years, and they think, how am I going to do this? And Andy listed some great presentations with downsizing experts. And what I tell residents is that's the hardest part. That is what you're going through right now is going to be the hardest part. Once you get to Park Center, it's going to be great because you're going through a lot right now. So I think it's just understanding the perspective of where you're coming from with that. The other thing I hear a lot, even when it's just starting out, is, and I think there's a question about this a little later on, but what's the cost? How do we pay for this? Like, how are we going to do this? And then on the flip side of that is what happens if I run out of money? And that's a very real concern. There's a lot of people that comes up almost every single time when I meet with someone. I don't know if Mallory experiences that as well. And like for us at Park Center, we have something called the Good Samaritan Fund that is supported through donations that says that we will never ask a resident to leave if they deplete financial resources through no fault of their own. So again, thinking back to the families, what are their concerns? That they don't want to have to think about what happens if my mom runs out of money and she's in long-term care. Am I going to have to move her? And at Park Center, all WesleyLife communities, you don't have to worry about that through that Good Samaritan promise. And so that's just something that helps add a lot of security for families and residents as they're working through the process.
Yeah, Mallory, feel free to follow up to that. Common fears, concerns, or just a different look at a conversation is what you say to families who feel hesitant or guilty about bringing up the idea of a move with their loved one. And I guess I'm not quite sure how often, that loved one actually comes in to have the conversation with you. But
So Lisa made a lot of great points. One thing about money and running out of money and having to move and everything like that, I tell on my tours, to make sure and ask what is going to happen when they do run out of funds and they may need Medicaid because you don't want to keep moving. I would say I am working with an individual that is, their dad does not know that they're looking for them yet. And the son is really, has some cognitive issues, and the son is really nervous about how his dad's going to react. And I just assured him, you know, he will be probably upset with you at first, but once he's in and once you guys know he's safe with winter coming up and you don't know if he's going to wander down the block and everything like that, you guys are really doing the right thing and just reassuring. And that's pretty much all you can do is just reassure. And then once they're in your building, just showing them how happy the individual is and everything.
Yeah, I guess to kind of continue off the cost/value conversation of what senior living communities offer, because they're all a little bit different and they all kind of, price out things differently. For Eden Crest, when families compare staying at home versus like with that, versus actually moving into the community, how does that conversation kind of go in order to help them understand the value of that versus like them living at home versus them moving into the community and the costs there?
So I actually have a cost comparison sheet. So at home, you're paying all your utilities, you're paying for your gas, for your transportation, you're paying for your groceries, your meals, all of that. Living at Eden Crest at the Tuscany, you know, meals are included, transportation is included. The only utility you're paying for is phone. You have no lawn care to do any longer, shoveling, all of those things. That's versus being at home. I think that would be a great thing.
Yep, and I'll follow up with Lisa for the same question, and because I know Park Center does, they kind of they have two different options type of deal. If you want to touch on that.
Yep. So at Park Center for pricing, we have two different options. And part of what I do is just really work with residents to figure out what is the best fit for them. No two people are alike in their situation. So we have what is called a legacy fee, which is where individuals can pay a lump sum up front to come into Park Center. They also pay a monthly service fee every month. But then what they become with that legacy fee is a member. So when Park Center first started, it was like a co-op. So then they all became a member of Park Center. And if you do that legacy fee, what it does is it gives you discounts at every level of care. So even in independent living, you get a discounted rate. And then as you transition to other levels of care, you also get a discounted rate. So again, thinking like everybody's situation is different. We do also have a lease option. We have apartments everywhere from 1 bedroom at 549 square feet up to a 3 bedroom at 1,500 square feet. So there's a lot, and there's a lot of options in between there. Any apartment that's 1,000 square feet and above is only available the legacy option because those apartments are much more in demand and they usually require a lot more with renovations. But if anything under the 1,000 square feet could be either a legacy or a lease. And so that's, again, just a conversation that I have with the prospective residents about what would be a better fit for you. I have a couple moving in next month that they have fantastic long-term care insurance, pretty much will pay every day. So to them, it made more sense for them to do the lease option because once they get to long-term care, they'll be completely covered. So that that discount really wasn't as important to them. So it's all just about where people are and what is the best fit for them as they're looking to come to Park Center. And those prices can range anywhere from a 1 bedroom could be a $60,000 entrance fee, legacy fee, all the way up to the 3 bedroom could be $240,000. And so it just depends on where you're at there. Now, not to overwhelm with information, but there also is a refund that goes with the legacy fee. So it's not, you do get some of that back depending upon how long you live in the apartment. But I think the key thing is you just have to, whether it's at Park Center, Eden Crest, anywhere you go for a community, it's really just important to talk through all the different options so you can understand how much the cost is and what's included in that. Our monthly service fee pretty much includes all of your living expenses, housekeeping twice a month, all your utilities, maintenance. And like Mallory said, if you start comparing how much it costs to stay at home, I don't know about you guys, but homeowners insurance the past few years after derecho and a hailstorm, that's getting up there. So you start factoring all that in and see what it costs to live at home and what it costs for a community, and you're going to find you're really not that far off from what you're already paying.
And then Mallory, I wanted to follow up as well, off script. But
Yeah.
would you mind describing so you described the levels of care, and then Lisa was kind of talking about kind of the unit counts and like what they have. So how many like apartments do you have at Eden Crest and or like just overall like yeah, if that makes sense.
Okay, yeah. So we have 54 independent living apartments. One great thing about our independent living is that they're duly certified. So if you move into your apartment as independent living and then later on you do need those assisted living services, we are able to increase your rate and get those services to you as well, so you don't have to move. And then we have 20 memory care apartments, and those are both secured units in our building. And they actually are in two separate wings, but they connect, which is really amazing. And then we have, I want to say 17 assisted living apartments. Right now we have a couple studios available. We have 4 studios available, and then the rest, the 1 and 2 bedrooms are full. And same with independent living. We only have 1 bedroom available, but they range, the studios are about 470 square foot, and then our apartments go all the way up to 790, some of them, and then all the way up to 1200. So, and touching on just, we do require 2 years of private pay. Tuscany itself does not take elderly waiver, but we do have 5 Eden Crest communities that do. So if there is a time where you do need Medicaid, we do help get you into one of our sister communities, and so you can continue to stay in the Eden Crest family.
Okay, kind of going back here. So Lisa, just thinking about like when you're sitting down having that first conversation with the older adult and they raise their hand and they are ready to move in, and they want to put themselves on the wait list, assuming a unit is not available.
Mm-hmm.
What does that conversation kind of look like? What steps are involved? How long does it take for someone to actually move in after they put themselves on the wait list and, you know, to like the unit is open?
So it can really depend on the person and the apartment that they want as far as the process goes. I've had some residents I've worked with for 2 years. I have some that came for a tour, made their decision the next day, and they're moving in within the next 30 days. And so it's just all these variables with everyone, the right apartment at the right time. I do see a lot of, like in the fall, especially this time of year when it's starting to get cold, residents have been fine in their homes, but now the realization winter is coming again. I don't want to have to take care of my house and I don't want to be alone in my home. Social isolation is a very big thing, especially if you have Iowa winters, if you cannot get out, if it's cold or it's bad weather. And so that has a lot of appeal to individuals of, again, the sense of community that you can always be around someone. So really it is just depending upon the person, what apartment they want. At Park Center, we're a little unique in that we allow residents to customize apartments. So if an apartment becomes available and let's say it needs new kitchen cabinets, then they are able to pick that. So I always tell people that the sooner that they can really make that decision, we talk about timeline in the very first conversation I have, because not so much that I'm trying to pressure anyone, but I just want to keep in people's mind, in front of their minds, that if there's an apartment that needs renovations, that can take some time. Our cabinets are custom made, that's a 12-week lead time. So just so that we can work through that and make sure that we're meeting the timeline of when they would like to move. But again, it all just kind of depends. We also have apartments that are move-in ready, but it's just a collaborative effort between the resident and then Park Center.
And then Valerie, just keep trying to think through the transition process as well, and continuing that throughout. What advice do you or would you get families on preparing both emotionally and practically for the day of when they actually move into the community?
So emotionally, I would say just to have kind of all hands on deck kind of thing and really support in the community as well as you're coming in and just as staff in the building, just coming in and checking on the individuals and seeing how they're doing, seeing if they need any help. Maybe I do a lot of little welcome gifts and things like that just to make you feel at home as soon as you walk through the door. Even I suggest to a lot of families, if it's possible, to have everything moved in before their loved one even comes into the building, because then, and it's familiar items to them. So when they come in, their apartment is all set up the way they would prefer it to be and just like their home. So that's practically, I would say, just making sure everything it has a spot and you know where it's going to go, coming in and measuring the apartment, because moving from a full-size house to apartment can be a little stressful. But if you know if you know what the space holds and everything like that, it can ease a lot of tension and everything on move day.
Yes, definitely. That one of the first steps that we talk about as well, just on the real estate side, is figuring out where you're going to go first. So then you know the space, and once you know the space, you know what you can take and what can fit and or what won't fit, and then you can figure out what to sell, donate, and keep. So definitely good. And then just advice, Lisa, any advice for someone who's just starting to think about senior living but is not sure where to begin? So like they're haven't talked to anyone, thought just popped up in their mind. Where should they start?
Well, a good place to start is a local expert, which we have one right here, Andy. As he said, he's been to visit a lot of communities. So, start talking to friends, start talking to family, talk to Andy about, I'm starting to think about this. What would you recommend? And I highly encourage people to go and tour. I'll get a lot of calls and people will just want to know the financial part. And that is a big component. But as Andy said earlier, it is the feel of the community that is the most important thing, because you're going to walk into a community and you're going to say, oh, I really like this. This feels good. People are out and about. Or you're going to walk in and say, I don't know, this doesn't feel good to me. I don't think this is the right fit. And so I highly recommend you to tour. I mean, certainly you can look online and if you search for senior living communities. And I think also just think through what is important to you. There are standalone independent living communities. There are some that are, independent living, assisted living, and then you have the full continuum of care. So just to start having those conversations, and I would say involve your family and if you have children, involve your children in these conversations, because even though we talk about how hard it is for you, it could be a hard transition for your kids too, if you're leaving the house that they've grown up in. So start having those conversations so that everybody understands what your end goal is and what you're really wanting as you look to maybe make a transition.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that's good. Another point to touch on that, as I have been touring senior living communities, it's interesting if you go during lunchtime versus if you go during like 2, 3 p.m. Mm-hmm. There is a difference. There's not as much activity during like 2, 3 p.m. nap time typically. So if you do go, like lunchtime is a great time to go, just so you can kind of actually see like the movement that is happening. And if you have the opportunity, I would encourage you to get lunch at the senior community as well. If that's something they would be open to offering, because then you can get an idea of the food that's at the community. And then Mallory, what encouragement would you give to adult children or caregivers who are trying to make the best decisions for their parents? So this is the perspective of the child to the adult.
I would say just do your research. They really need to look into communities, go out and tour several communities. Like Lisa and Andy were saying, you will get a feel. They'll get a feel for a community on how it is when they walk in. For caregivers, I know that typically the one caregiving for usually gets sick first. So just really highly encouraging them to take that load off and say you're caregiving for your spouse. Once you are able to get your loved one into a community, you get to be their spouse again versus their caregiver, which brings a lot of life back to both of you. So those are just some words of encouragement I would share.
Mhm. So I guess for people here, and they say, yes, I'm ready to go. I want to start touring. What are Mallory, what are the questions that people should ask when they're actually inside of the communities and are actually touring with the marketing director or whoever they're touring with?
So level of care is huge. I always tell everyone to ask what is going to happen when I do need that higher level of care. Another green flag question I would say is the money question. You want to make sure you're moving into a community that you can afford and that you are able to stay in. And just what are visiting hours? Are you able to have family members come and stay in from out of town? Just important things that you may have done in your house that you may not think of when you are touring. Because if your kids live in California and they come in every Thanksgiving and room with you, are they going to be able to continue to do that in that senior living community that you're in? So,
Yep. We have, as you start touring different communities, uh, highly recommend taking notes while you're there because it's super easy to forget what each one looks like. When I first started, this is from my own experience. When I first started touring them, I would tour like 2 to 3 at a time, and then the next day I'm like, I don't even remember what each. So just a side note there. But yeah, any other follow-up questions that older adults should ask while they're touring?
I think Mallory covered most of them. With, like she mentioned earlier, ask the question too about what does happen if my loved one runs out of financial resources. Some communities will help you get through the Medicaid process. Some will say we can only accept private pay. So that's a very crucial question that I would ask. I think on the independent living side, definitely ask about what types of activities they provide and how you might be able to get involved in the community if that's something that you are interested in. Otherwise, I think she covered a lot of the other ones about transitions to different levels of care. Yeah, I think those are the most important ones.
Yep. Yeah, so I guess just to kind of wrap things up before we go to Q&A, do either of you just have, one thing you wish to share for people to understand about senior living communities or, a myth or something like that?
I think there's a lot of misconceptions about them. I think that people put it off because they're like, well, that's what you do when you can't take care of yourself, and that's absolutely not true. Especially at Park Center, like we want every resident to pursue their joy and to be able to live their life like they did, but just get a little bit of extra help so that you don't have to worry about things like what happens if my washing machine breaks. Well, we take care of it. You don't have to worry about it. And I can say this, I worked at the hospital before in Newton before working at Park Center, and I was friends with the person who worked there that did this role before me. And every time I went there, I was like, this is like really fun. There's always people out and about. This seems like it would be a really fun place to work. And I think that that's really what you want to be looking for is where does it feel good for you? And so that just plays into the tour. Take the tour. Even if you think you're not going to do it for 5 years, just go see what it is truly like in a day at a community because I think people have a lot of misconceptions about what they truly are.
And sorry, if you want to go tour and you're nervous about it, I'm happy to help set that up for you and go walk it with you. If that is an option if you would want to do that.
That's it.
But yeah, any other just follow up final thoughts of reflection or anything that the audience should know?
I would just say be proactive and do your research while you can. Knowing where you wanting to go, letting your family know where you want to go, having them tour with you. That's the best gift you can really give to them is prepare. So,
It's always harder to make decisions in crisis mode versus, pre-planning and doing those types of things. So, yeah, we'll open it up to Q&A. Does anyone have any questions? Jim?
Would you say there's a sweet spot, age-wise, that people should look at a senior community, or is everybody different?
mhm.
How would you answer what is the typical point at which you see people entering your communities?
That's a really good question. And I do think it is dependent upon the person or the couple. I will say I have residents like right now through this fall moving in anywhere from actually I have a 66-year-old moving in, even though we don't talk about age at senior living communities. A 66-year-old all the way up to people that are in their 90s. And so it is just dependent upon the individual. My personal recommendation would be to do it earlier rather than later, because you're going to get to enjoy a lot more of the community and the benefits that it has to offer. So I think you just have to look at where you're at with, where you are in your home and when you feel like it's a good time to make that transition. Yeah. I don't know if you have
No,
anything different to recommend there.
That's fantastic.
Any other questions? Yep, go ahead.
What would assisted living services provide? That's one question. The second, what kind of spiritual services do each of your communities provide?
For us, assisted living is staff from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. And we do everything based upon an assessment, and then you go into a level of care. So for us, independent living is your independent, but we also have WesleyLife at home that can come in and help you in your independent living apartment. So we try to keep people as independent as possible, as long as possible. So even if you just need help, maybe showering 3 times a week, maybe it's medication management, but other than that, you're pretty good. And we will encourage you to go WesleyLife at home first. If you have to make that transition, then that's typically when there's more things like medication management, showering, getting dressed every day. And so we base that all upon the levels of care that you're needing. So it's very tailored to you. Then once it becomes something where there's a 2 assist needed to maybe get you up out of bed to get you dressed, then that would be when you would look at transitioning to long-term care. Park Center and WesleyLife has a really strong relationship with the United Methodist Church. That was what our founding is based on. So we actually at Park Center have a church service every Sunday morning at 10 a.m. from the United Methodist Church. They also do a Bible study at Park Center, but then we also have residents that lead Bible studies at Park Center. So we always encourage like resident led. We think that's fantastic. And so they can do that as well. And then there are some other individuals, like we have a volunteer that's a pastor, chaplain, and he comes in and volunteers as well.
So at Eden Crest, we do in assisted living, we include medication management, shower assistance, transferring assistance. Our resident attendants are there 24 hours a day. On the spiritual side of things, we have Catholic Mass, we have Bible study, we have non-denominational services. So it just ranges. We try to make sure there's a fit for everyone.
Any other questions? Nope. No worries. Perfect. That sounds good. Thank you, Lisa and Mallory, for your time and for being here today. If you want to give a outro or whatever platform, please. Obviously, just want to thank everybody for being here today again. Next month in December, it'll be on Thursday, December 4th. We are doing Should You Sell As Is, What Longtime Homeowners Need to Know. So that'll be next month's seminar. And then lastly, I just want to encourage everybody, if you know someone that would benefit from the seminars, feel free to just bring them along with you. We just try to provide education for the community. They don't have to live in Monroe. They can be people. We have a couple people that drive from Pella, so it's always good to see them. So I would just encourage you to invite someone. But thanks everybody for coming, and we will see you next month. Thank you. Thank you. Perfect.